Hi, I'm Thuranki Ramatiraka. This Self-Mastery Shorts video is about the sense of humor and its development. Now, when I say development of a sense of humor, two things should immediately come to mind. Two possible meanings or denotations of the word development. One would be development of sense of humor with respect to quantity of sense of humor. Increasing a sense of humor, having a greater sense of humor, no matter what your starting point is today with your quantity of sense of humor about life affairs. The other denotation would be quality of sense of humor. As in, what kinds of things do you find funny? Almost to the point where we could say, is your sense of humor ethical? All right, well, I haven't found a lot of material in the self-mastery strain of information category that has to do with development of sense of humor. I haven't found much on how to develop a sense of humor, period. But sense of humor is very important for the person who wishes to personally evolve in life, and a person who wants to get through life a little bit more easily, as well as for the person who wants to gain some, greater self-mastery than you currently have. Certainly a sense of humor would be helpful, and a sense of humor would be part of it. So how to develop a sense of humor? What can we come up with right here, right now? And can we come up with something that might take care of both directions of development of sense of humor? Quantity and quality. Now, with respect to quality, let me just, before we get there, with respect to quality, let me just ask you a question. Are you somebody whose sense of humor boils down to laughing at other people's mistakes? Is that, the main thrust of your sense of humor? Laughing at other people's mistakes, other people's failures, other people's sorrows, other people's misfortunes? Is that what you laugh most about? I would suggest that maybe you consider refining the quality of your sense of humor, if that's what your sense of humor boils down to. Now, back to the question. What can we come up with right here that might help you develop a greater sense of humor with respect to both the quality and quantity? Well, I think that we might be in a better position to find humor in all of life's affairs if we learn to develop our sense of humor with respect to ourselves first. Because we are always in all of our life affairs. We're the common element. We're in all of them. So if we have a greater sense of humor about ourselves, well then that's probably going to tend to bleed right on over into all of our life's affairs rather easily. So how to develop a greater sense of humor about ourselves? That's the question. And will that take care of both these aspects of development, quantity and quality? Well, no doubt it will. If we are going to get a greater sense of humor about ourselves, well, that's quantity, at least, right? And it's also going to be quality because at least in developing that, we will have a greater percentage of humor about ourselves and in ratio to sense of humor about other people. So when it comes to, if there's a person who finds that their humor, their sense of humor centers around other people's misfortunes, mistakes, fumblings, and so forth, well, at least we're taking the sense of humor and attention off other people's mistakes and putting them on ourselves, even if it is just our own mistakes. At least we're not directing our sense of humor at other people's failures. So there is that in the least with respect to quality. And I'm sure there will be other quality category implications as well and manifestations as well if we go about learning to have a sense of humor about ourselves, whether it's our own mistakes or otherwise, just having to do with ourselves. Okay, so how do we develop a sense of humor about ourselves? When would we need it most? Perhaps it's when we're having a misfortune ourselves, right? Some kind of a failure, some kind of a fumble, something that we might find other people chuckling about, but we don't find it so funny. Something that causes us some embarrassment, a little bit of grief, about something stupid we just did. It might be a good time to have a sense of humor about ourselves. So how do we do that? I think that's what the question here might boil down to if we're looking for a way to develop sense of humor. How can we learn to laugh at our own mistakes? A little more than we currently do. Perhaps those are the moments when the sense of humor seems to most escape us, or our own misfortunes, all right? Maybe it'll help if we do this. Maybe it'll help if we can find a way to see our own situation or our own stupid thing we just did, either at the moment or later on, upon in a moment of reflection back on some stupid thing we did. Try to see what we did from the point of view of somebody else looking at us. And if that's kind of difficult, then pretend it's someone else who did that stupid thing. And, okay, maybe that's the easiest way into this. Right? But the point is, no matter how you get into it, about yourself, the point would be to find a shred of humor in that. In whatever the thing is, whatever the event is, whatever the circumstance is, regarding you. Whether you're imagining it to have been someone else's circumstance, or being able to see yourself from someone else's point of view. Find a shred of humor in that. Okay? Just some little bit of humor. There must be one. And if you're having trouble doing that, okay, imagine, then go ahead and do the thing where you imagine someone else did this stupid thing. And even if you're not a person who laughs at other people's mistakes, here you are imagining someone else making a mistake that you did, okay, a little earlier in the day, let's say. And if you get good at this, you might be able to do this instantaneously. But let's say you're reflecting on it later and you're imagining someone else did it, and you're looking for the shred of humor in that, some little bit of humor in that. If that's difficult for you at the moment, then consider that circumstance that you're trying to find a shred of humor in, and go ahead and laugh. Anyway, I mean, make the sound, make the facial expression, you go ahead and do it. And listen to the sound. It's a sound you're familiar with. And it is connected with a feeling of, that we call sense of humor. There's something about it that we are familiar with, right? Laughter indicates something. So go ahead and do it. Just like that. Go ahead, Go ahead. Make the sound, make the facial expression. Listen to the sound. And while doing that, catch a shred of the feeling. It's going to happen. It will be there. You need to just connect with it. Just kind of reverse engineering humor. Usually when we think something's funny, we go ahead and laugh. In this case, we're going ahead and laughing and then going for the feeling that goes with that. And it'll be there. It'll be there. We just need to detect it. And as soon as you detect it, you catch on to that little filament of The feeling, that's what we're after. Okay? And you just caught on to that. That feeling. A little bit of that feeling in connection with imagining, in connection with some event, hypothetical situation in which someone else did the stupid thing that you did earlier in the day. So there's a connection there. The feeling of humor with your imagined scenario in which somebody did something stupid, the very thing you did. Now, you keep on that feeling, just keep that feeling no matter how slight it is, and consider the stupid thing you did, and continue with the feeling, and connect the two. Now, first time you have success with this, I'm not saying you've dramatically increased your sense of humor at that point. Practice. Practice. I'm giving you a formula which will require practice. That's the hard part, right? These self-mastery tips here in my self-mastery shorts videos. Putting them to practice. Repetition. Paying attention as you do them. Applying them in everyday life. That's the hard part, right? But that in itself, going ahead and applying this stuff with repetition is part of self-mastery too. I mean, you can have a toolbox full of tools, and it's a different story to actually use them. So this is one to actually practice. Remembering to do so is also a matter of increasing self-mastery. Here in this little playlist, of self-mastery shorts videos, there's so many ways in which self-mastery is being addressed that I'm not even saying in every video. If you actually remember to apply even some of this material, you'll start recognizing all the different ways in which each little thing here applies to self-mastery. This is one of them. This is a difficult one because there's not much material about the development of a sense of humor. Well, you'll find a gamut of information about sense of humor, but how to increase your quantity of sense of humor and your quality of sense of humor, I don't think there's much there, really, because, well, I don't know why. I guess it's just one of those things that's kind of hard to get one's finger on. How do you develop a sense of humor? It seems like a person either has it or they don't. And if they have it, it seems like, what they think is funny is what they think is funny, and what they don't think is funny, they don't. But it can be developed. I know it can. I know it can. And I think that what I just told you is a way into it. A pretty good one. I mean, it all seemed pretty logical as I said it, right? And don't you agree with me? Do you agree with me that developing a sense of humor is a pretty good thing to do? It's rather instrumental in life. Make life a little easier, maybe a lot easier. To enjoy life more. And to actually take steps that require your attention and use of will to develop your sense of humor, both in quantity and quality, has something to do with self-mastery. Or some things to do with self-mastery. I think you'll agree with that. Now, if this thing that seems to be kind of difficult or hard to get one's finger on, this thing about development of sense of humor as a cause and effect of self-mastery. If it's really kind of just that simple, it's kind of funny, after all. Well, I'm Tarang Q. Ramacharaka. Have a good day.